Homesteaders, welcome to another Sunday session where we have conversations about homesteading and all things to do with homesteading with homesteaders, farmsteaders, self-sufficient enthusiasts. And today we are talking about quail, the small but mighty quail. And we're chatting with Dr. Julie from the Happy Quail about the benefits of having quail on your homestead. So Dr. Julie is really passionate about food sustainability. She's always grown her own veggies and herbs, raised and kept chickens, ducks, sheep, beef cows, and now quail. Now, strap yourself in because Dr. Julie's got quite the background. So Dr. Julie's background is in agricultural botany, which she studied at Reading University in the UK before undertaking a PhD in food policy at the University of Tasmania. She's worked as a researcher for many government organisations, including the CSIRO, and in private industry as a researcher and seed production manager for Botanical Resources Australia. During the early stages of the pyrethrum industry. Did I pronounce that correctly? Hopefully. Dr. Julie has also been the leader of the International Women's Network for the charity Aquaculture Without Frontiers, was a member of the Gene Technology Ethics and Community Consultative Committee, providing advice to the Office of Gene Technology Regulator. That's all massive. So basically, like, her values and her driven by this belief that scientists these days have kind of focused on breeding input aggressive agricultural products with traits that are more profit orientated rather than nutritional taste orientated. And hence the need for us to return to more traditional foods that are produced sustainably and, more importantly, locally with a community focus, which is a really strong value of our Australian homesteaders community as well, because, you know, too many families are struggling in Australia to put healthy and affordable food on the table. And, you know, let's try to change that. Welcome, Dr. Julie. Did that kind of cover everything? Do you need anything to add?
That's pretty extensive, yeah.
Okay, great. We got you. All right, we've got a comment just saying that everything's working. People can see us, hear us. That's great. Fantastic. Cool. All righty. So today it's all about the quails. And let's just kick off by saying, why keep quail over other poultry? Let's do like high level benefits and then we'll drill down into the details.
Yeah, so quail, they only take a fraction of the space that you need for chickens. So they're quite a small bird. Females weigh about 330 grams. So you can have a couple of breeding groups quite easily in your backyard if you haven't got a very big backyard, or you can even keep them in cages. Even if you had an apartment, you could have a cage on your balcony if you so wish to do so. But they're so prolific. That's what gets me about quail. They lay an egg a day. Like, you know, that's an egg a day all through most of the year, except for the winter when they stop laying when the days become a bit shorter. So, and they're so prolific in growing. So when they hatch, they literally grow overnight. So you have quite a big difference between the ones that hatch out first and a couple of days later. So because they're fully feathered and ready to go outside within 4 weeks.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Whereas chickens, they take 4 months before they're ready to lay. These birds will start laying in 6 to 8 weeks. So, and they just breed like rabbits. They really do. You know, you can have so many eggs. I've got 6 breeding groups here, and I get about 18 eggs a day. So they're very fresh and
oh wow! I'm gonna ask you for recipe ideas a bit later in our chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying they don't need a lot of space. It kind of, and you could even have a cage on a balcony. It strikes me as, because we've got quite a few, yes, we've got property owning homesteaders, but we've got a lot of urban homesteaders in the group as well.
Sure.
Would this be kind of like a suitable animal? I know people have backyard chickens. Chickens can be noisy. What's the noise aspect of quails?
Yep, that's a really good question because they are lovely and quiet.
Nice.
Yeah, the noisiest chooks I've ever kept are Isa Browns, and they just tell the whole neighborhood that they've just laid an egg. Whereas these birds, no, they don't. They just chatter amongst themselves very quietly. And the roosters do crow, but they sound more like frogs.
Really?
Yeah,
I was envisioning like this,
really
miniature rooster. Oh my God. Okay, so it's not just like a miniature rooster sound. It's like a little frog, little froggy. Okay.
Definitely not. And they're easy to handle. They're great for kids as well. Just easy to handle. If you live on your own like I do, you can look after them quite comfortably, and they're easy to catch and that sort of thing. So, and they're friendly. Give them a sand pit and watch them play. They're just, they're entertaining.
They sound like a lot of fun. So give me a little bit more information about their personalities, because you mentioned that they'd be good for kids to like handle and interact with, and they're fun to watch. A lot of people are already familiar with chickens, I guess, is the only like farmyard animal that I'm coming up with. So you've had both. Give me a comparison in regards to personalities, their behavior, kind of interactions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, they're friendly, just like your chickens. They're friendly. They're curious, but they're not as good problem solvers as chickens. I've had or destructive even, because I've had sweet corn at the back of the yard, and my chickens actually learnt to chip away at the base until the sweet corn fell over so they could eat it all. At least the quail, because they're kept in pens, they do need to be protected from predators, and kept in pens and with a lid on as well, some sort of covering, because they can fly. So they can fly over a 4-foot fence quite comfortably. Okay. So you do have to watch that, unlike chickens who, not that sort of flighty. And yeah, they're just really easy to keep. They're very hardy like chickens, and very productive, more productive, I think, than chickens.
Okay, well, let's talk about that productivity, because that's the kind of practical aspect for the homestead. You mentioned that like almost an egg a day, did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
One of your hens, are they, that quails are hens and roosters as well? There's not like another special term for them. That is what they're referred to as? Yeah. All right, cool. And the baby ones are also called pullets and cockerels?
Yes, that's right.
All right, all the same. All right, great. Yeah. All right, let's talk about egg productivity. Like, let's start with the eggs. Productivity, nutrition, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, they actually have a bigger proportion of yolk to white, unlike, chicken eggs. So they've got more yolk. So they're very nutritious. They have cholesterol like chook eggs, but they have a bigger content of the good cholesterol, so the high density lipids rather than the low density ones. So they're quite good for you. They're low in calories. It's only, the eggs are about 9 grams, so you can eat quite a few of them. If you're on a diet or you're a diabetic as well, like myself, they're very good to have, because they fill you up, and help keep your cholesterol in check. And nice. They're also high in vitamins and minerals too. So if you've got a B12 deficiency, they're quite high in B12, and selenium, minerals like selenium, which are lacking in Australian diets. They're high in selenium as well. So yeah, so lots of nutritional benefits from them, and they make great pasta. They really do. So
good for a carbonara. That's great. Oh, that's really interesting. I've got someone in the comments saying that they remember having a 20 egg quail omelette. So it might take a few eggs to do your standard size omelette, but but you're getting more bang for your buck. So by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I like making mini Scotch eggs out of them.
Ah, that would be great.
Yeah, they just end up like meatball size, you know.
Ah, that's great. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So how about practicalities for the homestead? How about growing them out for food? You said they grow really fast. Do you want to just expand on, I guess, that growing out process? Like what are the sort of timelines people are looking at for egg production, for like processing for meat, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'll say 6 to 8 weeks they'll start laying eggs. The cockerels actually start crowing around 3 weeks old, you know, so they mature pretty quick.
Yeah, that is. Wow.
Yeah. And they start breeding. The cockerels are probably ready a bit earlier, but they're ready for breeding in 6 to 8 weeks as well. So, and that's also the time that you can harvest them for meat as well. So even 5 weeks really, they're ready for eating as meat. So, and they're very quick to process too. Very, unlike chickens, you know, they take a lot of preparation. I can process the quail in a few minutes now. It's very quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the process similar to chickens, but just like on a much smaller scale, or?
Yeah, well, you just need a really good pair of poultry scissors.
Okay.
So yeah, I won't go into details in case some people are squeamish, but
that's fair.
Yep. It's very easy for, you know, people on your own, women on their own or whatever, can easily dispatch quail, unlike chickens that take a bit more energy and muscle to contain. So very productive. I've had families come over, you know, with 5 or 6 children, and you know, their son was the butcher, and you know, but they eat a lot of the quail meat because, you know, they can't afford other meats. So, you know, they really rely on the quail to feed their family.
Yeah, and that fast turnover. I mean, a lot of us Australian homesteaders have like read American blogs, watched American YouTube, and a lot of those Americans breed rabbits and that thing for a similar purpose. So you can keep them in a smaller place. It's a higher turnover. But of course, here in Australia, we've got some areas that rabbits aren't permitted, or for example, our property, when we moved here, there was quite a few wild rabbits, but someone nearby must have released that virus and they were wiped out within a matter of days. And your like rabbit that you're using for farming at home is not immune to the viruses that they've developed. So you can have like a whole breeding setup and it could be very quickly wiped out. So
I've actually I've actually bred New Zealand rabbits.
Yep.
So I did have quite a few around here, but yeah, the virus, especially if we've had a lot of mosquitoes around, you know, I've had rabbits be wiped out from that. So I totally agree with that. Whereas the quail, you know, nothing much affects them because they're isolated from wild birds. So, you know, they're and as long as they're happy and fed correctly and everything, then, you know, they can last for more than 2 years quite comfortably. So
okay, is that their usual lifespan, the two years?
At least 2 years, at least 2
okay.
years. Yeah. And especially if you let them rest through the winter. I mean, you could give them artificial lighting because they stop laying eggs when the day length gets shorter, but you can use artificial lighting if you wish to. But I actually let mine rest. I think it increases the longevity of them.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so all right. So we've established that these are like a pretty good option for a homestead, even like a big homestead, like for an urban homestead, but also a big homestead as a faster turnover, reliable source of protein. Because especially in Australia, we don't have easy access to those like meat chickens that the Americans get, and they just get a whole bunch for really cheap, grow them out. So a lot of Australians are leaning towards, you know, heritage breed and dual purpose chickens, and the growing out time is much longer bigger feed bills, you know, the bigger infrastructure area, everything plus the processing. So let's contrast that and talk about what would we need to do to get set up for kind of keeping and breeding quail.
Yeah, well, I use just iPet chicken runs, which are about 1.8 meters by 90 centimeters. And they're easy to set up. You can just buy them in a flat pack and assemble them yourself. They're quite cheap to purchase, just over $100. So I've got those. Plus I've got a couple of rabbit hutches that I had left over from the rabbits and that I use as well. And what I've done, I've put a little sand pit in the top of the hutch for them. So you get a cat litter tray and put some sand in it, play sand that you can get for children's sand pits. And they just love playing in that. So that's what they've got upstairs. And then, of course, I just move the pens around the garden so they've got fresh grass. You don't have to clean them because the grass can take, you know, their poo is very alkaline, but the grass can take it, and that's okay. From the brooders, I actually use wood shavings in the brooders, so you can collect that and put it straight into your compost bin. And put your lawn clippings in and then have the layers like that, and it's very, very rich. You know, you couldn't put it on worm farms. I've got worm farms as well, but because it's too alkaline to put on, too strong to put onto worm farms. But put it in the compost bin and it's fantastic. It's like black gold, it really is.
Oh, awesome. You mentioned the sand pit today. Like create little dust baths like chickens do, or do they just?
Yeah, it's good. They like that, and it also keep any parasites down, the same as chooks. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you were so you've got this kind of shelter that you can get quite easily. Tell me about like breeding groups, like how big a flock do you need to successfully breed for your homestead?
I probably should mention too with the feeders, I make my own feeders. So just go to your $2 shop or whatever and buy some containers and get a spade drill bit, and you can make, you know, 32mm holes in there.
Yep.
So it's covered, so it's quite weather resistant, the food, and you don't have any wastage, you know, whereas if you use chook feeders, they will flick it everywhere and waste a lot. So make your own feeders and just use chook waterers, and that'll keep them going pretty well. The feed that I use is the Lauki game bird starter for the chick starter. Okay. You can't use chicken chick starter because that's got medication in it, and quail is not registered for quail in Australia. So we're very fortunate to have the Lauki brand because it's very good. It's an Australian made product too, so the Americans miss out on this. So I use the chick starter for the first 8 weeks or so, 6 or 8 weeks. If they start laying eggs, then I'll change to the Lauki game bird breeder.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's got all the calcium in it. It's got the chick starter's got a huge amount of protein. It's 28%, which is what they need because they grow so rapidly. And also the game bird breeder has got a higher amount of protein than chicken feed as well. Like chicken feed's usually about 15%. This is like 22. Okay. So, but they need that because I worked out, actually, just a fun fact, with them laying an egg each day, each egg is about 9 or 10 grams. So if you work that out, that's about a 33rd of their body weight. So if we were to lay an egg like that, then that would be the equivalent of 2 kilos. We'd be laying 2 kilo eggs each day. So hey ladies, I don't know how we go with that, but it was so that's how much that's why they need to sustain their growth and make sure they're healthy and can perform really.
That the bucket, so it was a bucket and you're drilling, just back to what you were saying about the feeding situation. So you get like a bucket and then you just drill in the side, like how far up? Is that so they can stick their head in and just eat
Yeah.
from the bottom of the bucket, right?
That's
So
right.
how far up the side would be appropriate?
Just, I don't know, a few inches, 2 or
Okay.
3 inches up. I'll just buy food containers. So just plastic Tupperware,
Ah, okay.
transparent ones, so you can see what the level of food is in there. And
Makes sense.
yeah, so they don't take a couple of minutes to make.
Okay.
And the chicks also, if you're going to produce chicks, then you can't use a chick waterer. What I use is one of these, so it's just a budgie waterer.
Ah, yeah, right.
They're very susceptible for drowning. So yeah, I think you were asking about breeding groups, actually.
Oh, yes, we'll swing back to, oh, I would have got back to that, but oh, sorry, before we go into that, you just, because you were saying they're susceptible to drowning, I have heard a rumor that quail are not always, like you said, they're not as smart as chickens, but they are on the less smart side and sometimes get themselves into trouble and you know, do silly things that cause them to pass away earlier. Is that true in your experience?
The chicks are pretty silly. Yeah, they're very cute to watch, but they are very curious about things. And I did, you know, the earlier ones that I tried with the chook waters, they just like made a spa bath out of it, you know, and just had water all over the place. So and you know, to start off chicks, you can even just use a cardboard box. I start them off in a cardboard box with a couple of puppy training pads in the bottom.
Yep.
The small budgie waterer and just a small container with the holes in, and
yeah, okay.
You know, they're fine. They start feeding as soon as you put them in there. So yeah.
Oh, do you need a oh, I guess with something that small you could have them kind of indoors or inside, or do you also need like a heat source, like a heat lamp or a one of those heating plates for your brooder setup?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep them inside in just a cardboard box, a big cardboard box, for the first week or so until they all hatched out and out of the incubator. And then yeah, I use a old desk lamp actually with an infrared bulb in it.
Yep.
And just plug that in and make sure the box is big enough that they can get out of the heat if they want to. So I don't bother about measuring temperature or anything like that. Just keep it simple, you know. They'll adjust, they'll move out of the or into the light as they need it. So yeah, you just watch their behavior and you know whether they're comfortable or not, whether there's enough or not enough heat. They'll let you know.
Oh, all right, let's swing back to that, like a typical breeding group or a recommended breeding group. What can you tell us about that? Yeah,
so it's usually 1 cockerel to 4 or 5 females in a breeding group. You can keep a couple of breeding groups together, but you have to work out the dynamics of their personalities. So sometimes if you introduce a new cockerel, sometimes the girls don't like him and they will actually chase him and bash him up. So, you know, it's a bit of trial and error getting cockerels and hens that will get along. You know, it's easier if they're all from the same batch and they're the same age. But if you're introducing different age birds or different cockerels, they can often fight. So getting 2 cockerels that will actually get along together can be, you know, a bit of fine-tuning exercise. But of course, you can just keep them all separate and as a breeding group in a pen by themselves if you want to, or put a separator in. Do
the cockerels fight much, or is it really down to that personality dynamic?
They will fight. You get some that are more aggressive than others, and some, you know, that are quite placid. But yeah, just keep an eye on them. You just, as you're shifting birds around, then just keep an eye on them and observe them for, you know, a couple of hours. Keep checking on them because they can do really nasty things to each other. They can, you know, harm each other quite a bit. And also just make sure that the males aren't too aggressive with the females, because they can actually pull the feathers out of the back of their neck, and you know, they can sometimes they can break the skin and do something called scalping, which isn't very pleasant. So just make sure that, you know, and if you've got too many males to females, that can be the case as well. So, they're
Okay.
all sort of fighting for the same hens and can be a bit more aggressive with the hens. So yeah, breeding group about 4 to 5 is pretty good. And all depending on your fertility rate. Like sometimes, you could go to 3 if you really wanted a high fertility rate. But yeah, I stick at 4 to 5. That's
Okay. All right, nice. All right, so let's talk about their health a bit. What's sort of the main things you need to look out for? What are some of the regular, like, health related activities that you need to undertake with quails?
Yeah, well, they're very hardy. They're, just pretty similar to chooks, really. Just keep an eye out for mites. The sandpit really helps with that, and all they make their own dirt pit. Mites and worms. Occasionally, if you think that they suspect that they've got worms, then you can just get a all wormer, same as you use for chickens, and give them that. So, but otherwise, they're very hardy, very easy to keep. Yeah.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so if you want to do like an overview of kind of the main do's and don'ts when you're talking about kind of keeping and breeding quail.
The do's and don'ts. Okay, do make sure that they've got shelter from the wind and the rain, pretty much the same as chooks. Do make sure that they've got the right game bird feed, and the containers, specifically make your own containers, use the right waterers. For a hatch rate, incubators, I'm still testing different incubators, to be honest. The Americans have got it down packed. They've got so much choice over there. Like if you look at My Shire, there's a company called My Shire in America, and they've got lots of videos too, which are good resources for us to have a look at how to keep quail as well, because they do it on an enormous scale, and they've got access to a lot more facilities than we have, like types of incubators and egg packaging, all that sort of thing. So we've got a long way to catch up with them in terms of quail production. But yeah, they've got a chat box too, so you can post comments and ask questions. So if you want really professional advice from the experts in America, then they've actually got a question box that you can tap into. Just don't tell them you're from Australia. That's fine. Yeah, it's their knowledge.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you talked about sort of a smaller, like pet run, like a chicken run type shelter. I've seen like a couple of YouTube videos, and also this is something we're interested in doing at our place. We don't have quails, but it's on the wish list. Is we've recently built a shade house, and we're thinking of like sectioning off a section so it's like a dedicated enclosed area and that will have in-ground beds growing kind of a variety of things. It'll be covered. It's like 3 meters high. It's covered anyway. And there'll be, probably some mesh so insects and other bibs and bobs can get in and out. So is that sort of situation too uncontrolled an environment for raising quail? Like it's probably like a 4 meter by 5 meter space. Are they going to hide their eggs? Are they going to breed out of, like, what is that? Is that suitable?
That sounds excellent. Yes, they do. That's the other thing. Unlike chooks, they do not lay their eggs in a nest box per se. They just lay them anywhere, but occasionally they will make a little nest in the grass, and they're pretty good at hiding them sometimes. So sometimes you just find them because you stepped on one. Yeah, so a pen that size, you could use an aviary. They're really good at the bottom of an aviary too, because they pick up all the seeds and that other birds drop. So yeah, you can definitely just use an ordinary aviary. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have, if you're breeding quail, do you have to incubate the eggs? Will the hens not sit? Are they good mothers? Like, what's the deal there?
Yeah, they don't go broody very easily.
Okay.
So, maybe if you set up a few nest boxes, that might encourage them a bit. But generally, you're best off to get an incubator. I'm trying a couple of different incubators at the moment. I'm trying like a Chinese imitation of an American one, American design, which just rocks the eggs. I'm trying that for the first time. And the other one I've got is a Janol 24 egg. The Janol are good in respects of keeping the temperature constant and things like that, but they've got rails in them that are great for chook eggs, but the quail eggs seem to kind of move the rails up. So sometimes I just end up, if I've got the incubator full, which I can fit about 80 quail eggs in, then sometimes I'll just give them an extra roll around with my hand just to make sure that they're turned. So, but I've had, quite good hatch rates. My average hatch rate is around about 70-75%. So quite happy with that. The percentage of hatch rate might go down a little bit if they're posted. That's something I'm still experimenting with. We'd love to try different packaging as well. But yeah, that can go down a bit. So if you get eggs that are posted, then you're best to let them settle for 12 to 24 hours so that they can just sort of reattach the air sac and that sort of thing, get stable again before you put them in the incubator. So, and then I just put the temperature at 37.5 degrees.
Yep.
And about 50% humidity for the first 14 days.
Yep.
And then you stop rolling them, stop turning the eggs, and put the humidity up to around 70 until they hatch out. So, and then I try not to open the incubator, but sometimes, there can be 4 or 5 days in between the first ones that hatch out and the last ones. And they can only stay in the incubator for 24 hours maximum before they're going to need food and water. So sometimes you do have to, I have a box waiting so I can grab them and put them in the box and put them in the brooder as quickly as possible. So, but yeah, and then yeah, they're very easy.
All right. So if you start a breeding group, like after how many generations should you introduce new genetics into the group? It's a question from Glenn in the chat. Do you need to worry about inbreeding after a while? Does that matter? Like what's the situation there?
Yeah, absolutely. I change my cockles around. I get new bloodlines in quite frequently to keep them going, because if you haven't got that genetic diversity, then you're going to have more deformities in your chicks, like splayed legs and things like that. So, so yeah, it's important to be very conscious of your genetic, diversity. So that's why I've got, I don't know how many groups I've got here now, how many bloodlines I should say, but that's why I'm pretty confident that if I sell somebody a breeding group, then they're going to be good for 2 or 3 generations, because there's that genetic diversity, as you can see from the colors of my birds, everything from white to chocolate brown and everything in between. So I've been very conscious building up those bloodlines, and so people can be assured that they've got really good quality eggs, because mine are free range as well. So they get all the nutrition and everything. And I'd get very few deformities in my chicks. So.
All right. Well, that ties in quite nicely, because you did mention the success rate might go down due to shipping, which is, you mentioned that because you actually ship eggs for people to incubate and like grow out themselves, Australia wide, right? Is that across Australia?
Absolutely, yes.
Even to WA, there's no restrictions, because I know us over here at WA, we're kind of weird with stuff like that.
Yeah, WA is a bit of an exception. You have to get a permit. So otherwise customs will interfere. But everywhere else, I use Australia Post, Express Post, and express, like a polystyrene. I don't like using polystyrene because it's not very sustainable, but basically that's all that's available in Australia at the moment. I'm trying to change that. But yeah, and they'll arrive. They can arrive in New South Wales within 3 days. You know, and yeah, pretty quick. You don't want to use eggs that are any more than 7 days old. So, you know, I ensure that from collection, from I collect them from my yard to when they arrive to you, that they will be less than 7 days. Usually, you know, only 3 or 4 days if I can help it.
What's good about that also, because you mentioned genetic diversity, is some of us in more remote communities or even near the bigger cities, like we don't have a big selection of, say, breeders of a specific animal. So in certain areas, you can like get the same bloodlines over and over again. So sourcing it from somewhere that has a range of bloodlines and ships across Australia, you're introducing that genetic diversity without having to, you know, drive miles and miles to, you know, your next town or whatever to get something different. But I mean, if you don't have a lot of people kind of breeding that one thing in a geographical area, like eventually, you know, you're going to reduce that genetic diversity. So having something that you can like ship over is really good. I mean, that's one thing that really caught my interest when I first noticed your the Happy Quail. I think I noticed your post in another group. I said, oh, come join my group. Because this is, I mean, it's a bit selfish. We're personally interested in quail. I know we're not the only one. There's obviously people still doing it, but there's such a great option for homesteads, like big and small. And I was so excited to see that there was someone that shipped. Can you tell me more about like that kind of business that you're running? Like what kind of prompted you to get it started, and like how is the shipping of the eggs and going for people? And just I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
With the genetic diversity, you know, like I've basically done all the work that you need to start your own group. So you've got that genetic diversity from, you know, the first step basically. So because I've collected, you know, birds from all over, including Sydney. I've hatched eggs from, you know, so really I've done the genetics work for you to ensure that you've got that diversity, you know, to start off. So yeah, what was the other question? Sorry.
I was just interested to, I guess, find out more about like the business, and like, so tell me about that, like that side of your business and how that would work for someone, say like me, who's a potential customer. Like what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I sell everything from day-old chicks to, I sell the pullets and cockerels when they're 4 weeks old, because you can sex them at that age. Give or take a week, but yeah, around that age. So people will come locally to collect birds. America, again, are way ahead with us in this regards, because they ship live birds and chicks.
I know, it blows my mind. Yeah.
I'm still trying to find out their secrets about how they do that, but I know they use cucumber, and I sort of suspect that they use cucumber to keep the birds hydrated, and but I'm not sure how they do that, because quail do love cucumber too. Anyway, we've still got a long way to go before I start shipping birds, live birds, across the country. So at the moment it's eggs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did want to ask about that, because I'm fascinated when I see it on like the Americans do. I'm like, do people do that here? Like, I don't think so. And I'm just trying to imagine Australia Post like shipping like live chickens, and you know, it's sitting in a sitting somewhere for days, just going, there's chickens in there, or there's live animals in there. But okay. So if I wanted to get like a breeding group, and what sort of investment am I looking at? Could you give me some ballpark figures, depending on like if there's different breeds. Do you do all the one breed of quail? Do you have like different breeds? Are there different varieties?
Only the jumbo quail, so the Katoni.
Okay.
So yeah, and you can purchase a breeding group, which is 5 females and 1 male, for about $110. That's what I'm selling them for at the moment, and I'm usually sold out. I can't actually take orders anymore because too many people are asking for them in advance. I can't keep them. I just have to sort of say, okay, they'll be available on so and so date, and it's basically first in, first served.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I just can't, even though I've bought another incubator and I'm intending to ramp up the scale of what I'm doing, that's what it is at the moment. So yeah, and the day-old chicks, I can get a box for them. If people bring a box, or sometimes I deliver them too, I can deliver them. What I do is, those heat pads that you can put on your back or whatever, you just scrunch them up. I get them and put them on the inside of the box so they've got some heat.
Okay.
So I've delivered eggs, chicks, I should say, like that. So yeah, I can deliver things quite locally, I'm happy to do that. And for the eggs, you can purchase 2 dozen eggs for $60. So that's delivered to your door. That's express posted and express packaging to your door.
Okay.
Or just for $20 more, you can have 4 dozen. So for $80, 4 dozen eggs. And each tray contains 2 dozen. So I can either do 2, 4, 6. Dozen. So 2 dozen's the minimum that you can purchase from me.
Okay. And sorry, did you say that included shipping?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's all your fertile eggs shipped to your door.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's great. That's very economical.
Yeah.
Is that your like standard price or?
Yeah, pretty much. I can't really do it for much less than that.
Yeah.
By the time I package them up, and it's the polystyrene boxes that we can get are like $5 each. So factor that in.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So that's like, I'm super excited about that. Can I just actually, you said you're testing incubators. We don't currently own an incubator. Is there any, based on your testing, like so far, that you would maybe recommend that you can recommend?
I did open up a post on my Facebook page to ask people. I'm still gathering, researching it really, gathering people's experiences basically. Yep. So do I have one that's absolutely perfect? No. So I say the Genoa is good. They're all got pros and cons basically.
Okay.
You can get hold of the American ones, but they're like $800, I find, so I'm sure they're very good, and it can be a bit dodgy buying really cheap sort of imports as well, because they can just not do the job basically. So if you're going to get Genoa, make sure it's an original Genoa. I noticed that Poultry Australia, that's what they sell, the Genoa incubators, but you can buy them on eBay or whatever. Just buy them online. And I'll tell you another piece of equipment that's really good. Must get a pair of these. They're quail egg scissors.
Okay.
Quail egg in there.
Yeah.
And open them up, because they're quite hard, the shells, and they've got quite a tough membrane. So if you're trying to break them open like you do a chicken egg, you tend to get bits of shell in them. So when I'm making big batches of pasta and stuff like that, it's much easier to use these to crack open a lot of eggs quickly.
Cool. I'm going to jump into a couple of questions here. We've answered a few as we've gone along. Someone asks about snakes or like predators in general. What do you have issues around that? Like, because I know with chickens, we're kind of fox proof, and our our hen houses. So what sort of predators are quails susceptible to?
Yeah, I mean, you have to watch out for snakes and things like that. But the mesh on the iPet cages that I use is quite fine. So it'll keep out mice, rats, and anything else. And even I think blue-tongue lizards are also quite partial to eggs.
Okay.
I've seen a few of those around here. I do have foxes out the front of the yard, but they've never got into my backyard. So I'm lucky like that. Plus I have a dog. So she chases away anything that comes remotely near them. So yeah.
Okay.
And dogs and everything else that try and visit. Yeah.
And how about you said they like playing in the sand. How about other kind of habitat elements in their pens, or, you know, do they like hollow logs? Do they like hiding under things? What do they like climbing on things? What are some other, you know, enrichment or type elements you can add to their life?
You can, you know, you could put some drain pipes or something like that, something that they can climb under. I say I haven't really got things for them to play with so much, as they got the hutches, and they're quite comfortable going up ramps as well, even though they're ground sort of hogging birds. But yeah, I guess you could get them a few little things that they can jump in and out of, yeah, and play with, I suppose.
Fun. Okay, is there anything else that jumps out at you that maybe I haven't asked that you think that, you know, a homesteader that's considering quail should know?
Just get started. I think, you know, it's addictive. I warn you, it's addictive. Yeah, they're just a charming little animal to have in your backyard, and yeah, just get going and get some.
Yeah. Okay. Now, am I right in thinking that you might have, we're almost coming to wrap up now, you might have a special offer for our members to help them get started?
Yeah, well, I said earlier that eggs were $60 for 2 dozen. Okay, yeah. So for the first 10 people, I'm going to offer that at $50.
Okay, great. All right, and that will get them started, yeah.
Okay, and if you want 4 dozen, I said 80. I'll do it for 70.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for offering that. And they will have to. Is there like any sort of secret code or handshake they need to do so they know, like, hey, we heard you, or just say we heard you on the Australian Homesteaders Sunday session? And
well, they can just say, give me 2 dozen or give me 4 dozen on the Homesteaders page, and I'll contact you.
All right, great.
Go for it.
I mean, quails seem like a fantastic option. We're already like dead set that we're going to do quails. We've built our shade house. We haven't enclosed that section yet, so that is what we're going to be getting set up for. And I'm going to be giving you a call when we're ready for quails. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. Where else can people find you online, like social media, website, that sort of thing?
Yep. So the Happy Quail we've got a Facebook page, so you can follow that. I'm going to be doing more now. I've got a bit more time on my hands. I will be doing more posts on that. But if you read through, it's got lots of posts there about everything you need to know, everything I've just spoken about. Basically.
So much information. Yeah, go see the Facebook page, because there's so much information. Yeah.
Yeah, and feel free to contact me directly and ask questions if you can't find your answers there. So
yeah. Dr. Julie is in the group, so you know, give the Happy Quail a tag if you have any questions. People are saying this has been so informative. Thank you so much. This is the offer is so nice of you, and yeah, people are really enjoying. There's a few recipe recommendations in here. What did somebody say? Quail egg mousse, mouse melon and cherry tomato salad for kids. Okay, that's cool. We didn't get back around to the recipes. That's right. Maybe we can follow up with that on our chat. But Yeah, that's
Well,
great.
I had some for dinner last night, so I did 3 quail. Just put them in with some sage and thyme, and just flick them over in some oil and a bit of butter so that they're brown. And then I put an Italian homemade tomato sauce on it. So onion and garlic, tomato passata, and bay leaves and olives, and cooked them in that until the meat just fell off the bone, really. And had that with roast potatoes and some veggies, homegrown, of course.
Yum. Okay, that sounds great. Can I ask the taste? I didn't think to ask about the taste. Is the taste similar to chicken?
It's like chicken on steroids, really. It's a slightly denser meat than chicken. I would say it's, if you've tasted rabbit, it'd be a similar sort of density to that. It's very, very lean meat as well. It's very healthy. But yeah, just try it. It's quite unique, I guess. So
All right. Oh,
it's
exciting.
a little bit darker than chicken meat, of course.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste gamey. I thought it might taste more gamey, but it's not really. Yeah. It's quite unique. You have to try it.
Awesome. I plan to. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Julie, for taking the time to talk to us all about quail. Again, you can find the Happy Quail on Facebook, and also the Happy Quail website is that .com.au. And feel free to reach out to Dr. Julie directly if you have any questions, or are interested in starting up your own quail breeding set. So if you're over east is it in Victoria?
I'm in Homesteaders in Victoria. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're close enough, you can actually get some day-old chicks or some pullets and cockerels. Wonderful. All right, everybody, we're signing up, and people saying thank you so much. Thank you. Yum. Someone said yum to your recipe. So, and we'll finish up now. Okay, thanks everybody. See you later. Bye.
Thanks for having me.